everybody. Starting the video off a little bit different today, and that is because previously I just recorded a big ass angry rant about a condition called love. And the reason for that is I'll just put it right up here on Front Street. I fucking hated this show. This was a genuinely horrendous experience, and it is up there for worst anime of the year so far. God, I hope nothing gets worse. That would scare the living shit out of me. But yeah, I was just gonna like ramble and call it shit and be done with it. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, no. This isn't like JJK where it's the biggest fucking anime in the world and I'm just taking my cheap shots at it just to like stick it to the people who are obsessed with it. Shoujo is a genre that doesn't really get the respect it deserves in the world of anime. And as someone who isn't like super well versed in it, but respects the hell out of it, I feel like I should take the time and give the series its due and kind of explain where and why things go wrong and how it can be avoided in the future. Effectively, what my job should be as a guy who rambles about anime on the internet. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get started right with where the show begins, and that's quite literally with the premise. So, the idea to this show is that we follow two teenagers, Hotaru and Hananoi, who one day, Hotaru sees Hananoi getting dumped by his girlfriend and proceeds to, upon seeing him sad on a park bench, lend her his umbrella while it is snowing to make him feel better. This, in turn, causes Hananoi to decide that Hotaru is the love of his life and that they must be together and he will not take no for an answer, and he begins following her around and walking with her and just wearing her the fuck down. You'll see the problem here, right? It's not just me. This is not okay. This is not good. And the thing is that like a lot of romantic comedies, not just in Japan, but here in the States, do have paper thin plots like this, really dumb setups, and do revolve around similar levels of like just not okay behavior. Like the problem is that in today's world, we know too much about what people who actually are like this are like and what unfortunately tends to unfold because of this. So we don't really see this so in your face anymore in movies and TV show. At least from what I've watched, at least. You know, I can't speak to everything. But it kind of feels like we have tried moving away from this. So it feels like if you're going to do a series with a premise like this, you really need to have an idea what you're doing, and you really need to focus in on what it means to be like this in a modern understanding of it. And to be fair, to my understanding, the manga this series is based on does. To my understanding, the manga is a much more introspective, nuanced, mature look at this sort of concept and presents everything in a much more well-constructed, creative light. And the anime just does not do that. You ultimately have the problem of the manga can use all its elements to its advantage, and its most important thing is the audience's interpretation. You can read the manga, and your own personal experiences and biases will influence how you perceive the characters. But when you adapt something into a series, you now have to make choices, and portrayals have to be given. This is kind of a weird way to put it, but it's kind of a weird way to describe what's happening. But effectively, the choices they make here are just wrong because they're not creative. They are not given the time needed to flesh out. That really moves us on to our next big issue, and that is the characters themselves. Hotaru is supposed to be like a normal, down-to-earth girl, but she's presented as being so bland and one-dimensional that she doesn't really have any like interesting traits. So there's not really for you to like do anything with her. And you can tell that in the performance. The voice actress just does like the same thing all the time and never really like does much with what she's given. She can't because there's not much there, but it's very noticeable. Her and Hananoi have very little chemistry, and I think it's just because the actors just really did not know what to do with what they were given. Hananoi in particular is, yeah, there's no way around it. He's awful. He's insufferable. He's clingy. He gets like mad at her having male friends and then is mean to them when she's not around. She does things like gets a part-time job where she works. That way she can monitor him, that he can monitor her. Like, this guy is the furthest thing from a likable lead. And again, if you really wanted to go into things, you could make this work. If you really wanted to go into the psychology of someone like this, there'd be something here, but there isn't. A lot of times, he is just the stereotypical perfect boyfriend, and when he's not, he's just awful, but he's never like called out on his shit. There's never really a lot of growth. There's attempts to. There's lines in the dialogue where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get like better, but he just doesn't. And part of that is the performance. I don't normally harp on voice acting in these videos, but this is one where I just got to. He is just as bad as no, he's worse. Because like every line is delivered the same way with that like pretty boy, like love interest voice. So because of this, he has like no range and he just sounds insufferable. Like, there's just nothing here, so I can never really understand what's going on in his head because he just always sounds the same. These two just don't work together well at all. And some of you will probably say, well, you do learn that they both had things happen in their past that led to this sort of like opposites attract mentality of she doesn't really think she can feel romance and he's obsessed with it. But the thing was that the backstories we get for them are delivered to us in just expo dumps. In something like, say, Fruits Basket, and some of you may say comparing the gold standard for shoujo to this might be unfair, but something that show did very well was we built to revelations through getting pieces of the puzzle. It was never just character acts like this and that's the end of it. It was character acts like this because of this, and you learned more and more about them as the story went on. But here, Hodoro gets an expo dump. You learn why she is the way she is through just like her telling you, and you never really see how the trauma of what she went through actually like affects her day-to-day life, or really anything just more than a superficial, she's never felt feelings for a boy before, which I think is a very shallow representation of childhood trauma. And on the other end of things, you have Hananoi, whose backstory is so comically over the top and unrealistic that I think when you learned the big stinger, I think I just laughed. I couldn't at that point. I couldn't fucking process anything this show was doing as drama anymore. And yeah, it sucks. It really does. Even like the things that shoujos usually do really good, like having like really pretty visuals and environments, the show looks bland as hell and very flat. And whenever it does attempt a really beautiful visual, it kind of just comes off as either goofy or cringy. Speaking of cringe, I hated the musical score. Yeah, I really like a lot of shoujo scores. The Fruits Basket score is one of my favorite of all time. The music in this is awful. It's that schmaltzy Full House style. You will feel things because this same song will play over and over again whenever a big moment happens, and I fucking hated it. I hated every time it popped up. And yeah, that's kind of what I just have to say about this show. I hated it. It really is. And it's sad because I feel like there is this stigma about shoujo and I just don't understand it. It feels like every time I'll see a Twitter thread being like, here's some great shoujo, someone's gonna be like, no, Fuck shoujo! Demon Slayer is perfection! It's like, and again, I do like fun action and stuff like that, but, you know, there's room at the dinner table for more. Like, I want shoujo to be good, and there is good shoujo, and there are ones that tell stories that talk about darker emotions and build to really fulfilling romance and great stories. This just wasn't it. And I feel bad because, by all accounts, like I said, the manga does a really good job at it. So, yeah, all in all, just to sum it up, I hated this so much. I think I've made that clear. But yeah, what did you think about it? In the comment section below, give me your thoughts about A Condition Called Love. Again, I know some people did come around to it. That's fine. Tell me about that below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me next week where, to show I really do respect this genre, we're going to talk about a much better shoujo.